Hey there, fellow parents. Welcome to the Real Life of Parenting podcast, where we're all about embracing the chaos, sharing the laughter, and navigating the roller coaster ride of parenthood. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jenna.
And together, we're your co-pilots on this adventure.
Each episode will dive into the highs and the lows and the hilariously unpredictable moments that make parenting the wild journey it is.
So get ready for real stories, genuine conversations, and a few parenting hacks along the way. Whether you're dealing with diaper disasters or celebrating the small victories, we've got your back.
So buckle up, hit play, and let's embark on this parenting odyssey together. This is The Real Life of Parenting, where every episode is a reminder that you are not alone in the beautiful chaos of raising little ones.
Hi, my name is Jeff, and this is Jenna, and we are the hosts of the Real Life of Parenting podcast. We're very excited to get started on the very first episode today.
Yes, it's very exciting. We've never done this before, so we'll see how it goes.
I think the whole point of starting this really is just to I don't know, get in touch with other parents out there, people thinking about, trying to get pregnant, having a kid, adopting, all that good stuff. Everyone from, start to finish, kind of just open to chatting about anything and everything.
Yeah, we've definitely had our fair share of ups and downs within the process of our first baby. That's for sure.
So we're going to be definitely talking about that today. But we figured the best way to kick this off is to talk about us, so you have an idea of who we are as not necessarily just parents, but people in general, and I'd like to share our story with you.
Yeah.
It's a little intense.
There is, I will say there is a trigger warning, just for sensitive, for people who have had losses. I just want to make sure that I do let everyone know that there is a trigger warning for stuff like that.
Yeah. So anyways, let's get into it a little bit. Let's first of all, let's talk about us. So we met, how long ago did we meet now?
It'll be 8 years.
8 years
total. And we've been married for 5 years this year.
That's crazy.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
It seems like so long ago.
Yeah.
But we had, we first met when, we worked at Tim Hortons together, and Jenna happened to be my boss, essentially.
Still am.
Yeah, that's what she likes to tell herself. But we can't prove that. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely still am. I wear the pants in this relationship, for sure.
No. But anyways, so we met there. We
hit it off.
Yeah, we hit it off. Had some fun. You moved in pretty shortly after.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened?
Basically you went and you joined the military, which you're still in now.
Yeah.
And I was still working at Timmy's for a little while. I had, I think, 3 jobs at the time when you were gone, and or at least 2. And we dated for, was it 2 years, and then we got engaged?
Something like that. I know you were asking your mom when I was going to propose to you.
I was, because I was like, I'm ready whenever.
She was ready, but little did you know that I did actually tell your mom that I was going to propose to you.
That's right.
Bought the ring, and I went and showed her mom first thing, and she was just ecstatic and happy. And
what I think was actually priceless was the way you asked my dad.
Yeah, let's not talk about that one.
No, we are. So basically what happened was he was going to get groceries or whatever, and he ended up seeing my dad at No Frills, and he ended up asking my dad if he could marry me in a no frills parking lot.
In case you haven't figured it out yet, I can be it can be pretty awkward. So I just saw the moment, seized the opportunity, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, and no, so we got engaged, and a year after that, we got married, and we had our beach wedding that
Yeah,
we wanted, and
it was a gorgeous place and a horrible experience with staff, but
yes,
that's a completely different story. So
exactly. Yeah,
it was a beautiful place.
it was. It was gorgeous. But
Okay.
yeah, and then after that, basically, very shortly after we got married, we actually had bought our own place, our condo, and we actually moved in literally the weekend after we got married
Yeah, that was quick.
to our condo. And then I believe that same year, in November, we actually adopted our fur baby, Mickey.
Yeah,
And we've had him for, it's going to be going on 6 years, I believe, this year.
something like that. A long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So he's been with us since even before kids.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that's crazy. You're getting old there, big guy.
Yeah.
He's still a big suck. Still silly. He's a boxer lab, in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah. He hasn't slowed down at all.
No, loves the kids, but loves being a grumpy old man about them. So
Yeah.
they'll touch him, and he'll be like, "Brr," and then jump off the couch, and then yeah, you knocked that over. I didn't say
My
anything,
bad.
but yeah, so he'll jump off the couch because the kids came up and touched him, and so he's like, "I'm grumpy," and he moves space, jumps down. 2 minutes
Like
later,
2 seconds later.
yeah, he literally jumps back up on the couch.
And the kids are
up
still on there.
and then he touches them by accident, and then he's like, "Oh gosh, I gotta jump down."
Yeah. Like they're going to bite me.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then,
yeah, he's super silly.
yeah, he's super silly, but he's a fantastic family dog. Like he's actually really, really good with the kids, and we really, really lucked out with him.
Yeah,
Because honestly, like there's not a lot of pets that tolerate what he does with the kids. Like he's very, very patient. Yeah. Yeah. Like I can't say,
yeah, definitely a good family dog.
yeah, I can't say enough good things about him, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we'll get into how we kind of became podcasters.
Podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it's
a crazy
a-
title, isn't it?
I know it's a new experience
Completely
for
new.
both of us. So
I don't want to tell anyone at home, but it's my first time.
yeah, yeah, ripping off the Band-Aid here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess yeah, we'll get into
Yeah,
it.
let's get into a little bit of our story there.
Yeah, so
A little bit
Liam,
of a before we start there, a little bit of a trigger warning for certain individuals. Definitely a lot of topics that we're going to cover. It's gets quite intense, and there's quite a bit of stuff. Definitely that we haven't really even fully exposed to family in general, or even to each other. We haven't talked a whole lot about it, to be honest.
yeah, like I think like the other day,
Yeah, we were chatting about this because the episode was coming up, and we were
Yeah.
bringing up a lot of memories that we had forgotten about, and it's just
Yeah.
like, holy shit,
there's a lot.
that was a lot, and
We tried to condense it as much as we can,
so
so
we're
that
not
we're
gonna
not
be-
rambling.
rambling on for like 2 hours here.
Yeah, and we're gonna try and keep everything kind of flowing as smoothly as possible, and in each situation, like we're gonna try and keep things in order as much as we can, so we're not back
Yeah.
and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So, yeah.
Yeah, all right. But anyways, so we got married, moved into
yeah.
the condo, had the fur baby.
Yeah, in
And then it was-
November.
Yeah, something like that, eh? And we were married in July, had the dog in November, and like after July, I think you just stopped taking birth control, right?
We were married in July?
August. No, June. That's
June,
it.
end of June.
Liam and Lily's birthdays. But anyways, so that's what happened. Yeah, and then you stopped taking birth control, and we just assumed like we wouldn't try like, but if she got
It
pregnant, we didn't.
happened. It
It happened, kind of
happened.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so yeah, the first we had him in November.
Yeah, after a couple years of trying.
Was it a couple years?
Yeah, we tried, well, maybe like it was a year and a half
It was something like that, eh?
before we officially had Liam, because we had obviously our complications. I had 2 losses before Liam,
Yeah.
which were really, really hard on me. The first one was, I'm already tearing up because it's even though it's, you know, almost 3 years ago, you don't forget the mental and physical pain of it. But yeah, so I had my first one. I think the doctors had told me I was I was between 6 to 8 weeks pregnant. So I had originally went into the hospital with cramping, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And then they actually had said, "Oh, congratulations, you're pregnant." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Not really expecting it.
Yeah.
And this was during COVID, so like you weren't even allowed to come in with
No,
me.
I was in the car in the parking lot.
Waiting
Yeah, it was the
to
middle of the night, I
know.
think.
Yeah, waiting to know what was going on. And then when they told me the news, they said, "Oh, your husband can come in now," so that I was able to tell you at least.
Yeah.
And then, and yeah, so I was officially pregnant. We were really, really excited. And then I think it was like the next day or two, I was having really weird, not really feeling 100%
Yeah.
myself. And I figured, okay, well, I better go back to the hospital just to make sure everything's good, get my blood checked to make sure my HCG hormone levels were climbing the way they should have. And sure enough, they did a ultrasound on me to see if they could see a heartbeat, because I was at that point 6 weeks where they usually can see one on the ultrasound. And so they did like an emergency one, and it came out as there was no heartbeat. They couldn't find one. So the doctor that I had that evening, which was like 2 days after we had found out,
Yeah.
said that I was pending a miscarriage. So it hadn't actually happened yet, but it was going to happen.
Yeah, this is all through COVID too, like where I wasn't even allowed to be in like, the appointments, right?
Yeah, you weren't even allowed in the
So I
hospital
just
with
had
me.
to, like, when she's going to like a merge or whatever, I had to sit in the fucking car and
Yeah,
wait.
yeah,
And then just wait for you to call me, update me, kind of thing. And I didn't want to just drive home because home was about 30 minutes away. So
yeah. And so like basically when I got that news, it was hard, obviously. Like I don't think it really truly hit me until I got into the car and like we got home. But like I was upset when I was coming out of the hospital, but like I just had like the report that they gave me,
yeah.
and like I literally just handed it to you because I
think
couldn't read it.
I was supposed to work that day.
Yeah, you were.
And I just called in right there and I was like, I'm not coming in.
Yeah.
Luckily, they were pretty understanding, but
Yeah, yeah.
obviously.
But yeah, so like that was the first one, and like the physical pain when it actually happened, I think I officially had the miscarriage, I think a week to a week and a half after my appointment. And like, that's the most amount of pain I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, like it was like traumatizing. Not only physically, but mentally. Like, like I said, I'm still like very teary eyed about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had 2 miscarriages before Liam. The second one, we were actually going through a fertility clinic,
Yeah.
because I thought I had PCO, or the doctors thought I had PCOS. And the first time around, it just, it just didn't attach properly. It was just a fluke attachment. And then, yeah, the second time around, I was super, super early pregnancy. So the fertility clinic had done blood work to get the positive pregnancy. And they said that I think they wanted me to come in the next couple of days to get blood work to make sure that my HCGs were rising again properly, which they weren't. They were going down again, but they said that my start off blood work was like super, super low. It was a positive pregnancy, but it was super, super low, which means like I was just super, super early. And like they said, like most women wouldn't know they are even pregnant at this point because my hormone levels were so low.
Yeah. There was another one in there because I think you had 2 miscarriages before you went to the fertility clinic. But I forget what the other one was.
Yeah.
I remember there was 2, and then there was like that one that you're talking about where it was super early, and it was
Early.
just like a
Like
almost
a missed period.
Yeah, like a late period almost
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was before Liam. And then at that point, like mentally, both of us were just like not.
Kind of just really upset with it, and just like I don't know how we were dealing with it really, but
Yeah, just kind of trying to put it past us as much as we can. Like,
try to look forward and stay positive.
Yeah, exactly.
You had like I remember you had the ultrasounds on the refrigerator.
Oh yeah.
And like I think it was kind of a smart choice. You decided to get rid of them.
Because it would have been a constant reminder.
Yeah, and I think it's more of a mental block when they were there, right? Because that's all you're going to think about every time you
open the fridge or
fridge.
Yeah, go past the kitchen. Like they were right there.
Yeah.
You could see them. They were in plain sight. But yeah, that was like another thing is like I had my ultrasounds there from like when I was first pregnant, and I just decided that I was like, okay, like I remember asking like, should I throw these out or do I keep them?
Like, yeah, you were like super like hard strung about it, and like you were like really toying with it. You're like, I don't know if I should keep these or not, and I think ultimately you decided to not because it was just a constant reminder. Memories.
Yeah,
it was definitely tough.
It was super hard, but honestly, like after that, it was, I don't know, like 6 months to a year after all this happened, I think, we finally had conceived again.
Yeah.
And we were super excited.
And we didn't even like start any treatments from the fertility clinic or anything
no,
like that.
Like so they were about to, but then I actually had
yeah, you got pregnant when they were gonna think about starting stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So like my cycles were never regular. So like I thought it was just like a missed cycle or whatever, like I usually do, because sometimes I'd be so irregular. I'd get one 6 months, and I'd wait another 8 months, and then I'd get one every month, and I'd go again like 3 months, and like it wasn't abnormal for me to miss my cycles. So like I didn't think anything of it. And then I went to the fertility clinic to get my blood checked because I just wanted to make sure. And sure enough, I was pregnant.
Was the fertility clinic?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were just like, I feel like something's up.
Yeah. Like
did they check your blood or
they did my blood? Yeah. Because it's the quickest and easiest way to know if you're pregnant or not. Because like I remember taking home tests, every test, even with both of our pregnancies.
It was always negative.
It was always negative. I never had a positive pregnancy home test ever.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, eh? Like,
yeah, like
say like 99% accurate or something like that.
Yeah, and I would never have a positive one ever.
I always joked about we should have just bought the ones at the dollar store. I paid $1 for this test. It says negative or is it positive? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so yeah, I officially was pregnant again, and they did an ultrasound. They said, okay, you're about between 6 and 7 weeks. and they saw the heart rate and everything. I remember that day.
Mm-hmm.
And, but in the back of my mind, like because I had experienced the other two losses or three losses, in the back of my head, I was always thinking like every appointment I had with my OB on and like getting an ultrasound, I was like, oh my God, I hope they find the heartbeat, or
Yeah.
oh my God, like I hope nothing goes wrong, or like every little pain or cramping I had, I was like always like just walking on eggshells because that's how it happened the first, second, third time, right?
Yeah. It was always just, I remember, well, yeah, I always remember you telling me, like, I really want them to find this heartbeat. Like, I really hope they find it. I really hope they find it. And, like, it would get to the point where it kind of drive me crazy. I mean, like, but it was like, I'm trying to be positive and supportive. And
And
that
you
was,
were like,
yeah.
you can only do so much. Like
Yeah. It's just hard to keep reassuring you, but you,
yeah.
that was the big thing you were dwelling on. I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like, and everything seemed fine with him
Yeah.
early on, and he was doing well. He was growing. And I know the OB wanted to monitor me really closely because of my losses previously.
Yeah.
And so once I got close to 26 weeks in my pregnancy, my OB, I was starting to have elevated blood pressure.
Yeah.
And I've never had any health issues in regards to my heart or blood pressure or hypertension, nothing like that previously ever in my history. But the OB wasn't too concerned at first because she said it is normal to have elevated blood pressure when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
So she didn't think anything of it at first. So as the weeks kind of progressed, it started to be a trend where I would be hitting, like 140 over 98 or 140 over 97 or
Yeah.
95. Like it was the high side of
And
normal.
you always had like low blood pressure. Like
Lower.
yours was always like 110-ish
Yeah.
over, no, 70 or something like that, or
Yeah,
80.
the low side of normal.
Yeah. And so then you were like pushing like 140, like consistently.
Yes.
140 over, yeah, 90s.
Yeah, so basically they would always have me going into the hospital to get the non-stress tests done just to make sure there's nothing going on with baby, and to monitor his movement. Like everything was good up until just past 26 weeks actually.
Yeah.
And that's when my first hospitalization was, it was around 30, the end of 32 weeks going into 33.
Yeah.
I had, how long was I in the hospital for? I was in there for 4 days and 3 nights, I believe.
Something like that. I think you went a few times.
Yeah, so I went in there at first, and they gave me like some kind of antibiotic or something like that at the first time, and then I got transferred over to the Civic,
Yeah.
and then I was just monitored for like a night, and like everything seemed fine. And then after that, that was earlier. Like I think I was like 30 weeks at that point. And then around the 32, 33 mark, I was hospitalized again, this time at the general. Now, prior to that, my OB had sent me to the general with some specialists
Yeah.
just to watch Liam grow and to make sure that he is growing the way he should. But I remember the doctors always saying he's small. His long bones are small for his gestational age.
Yeah.
And that he was just going to be a small baby, basically. So that we should be prepared to have him in the NICU for like a few days or like whatever, to get him up to like whatever standard weight they like to discharge. So I was like, okay, that's not a big deal. Like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I got hospitalized at 30, so end of 32 weeks, going into my 33rd week, for really high blood pressure. I was like super swole
Yeah.
from the
The
hypertension.
falk ankles and everything,
Yeah,
eh?
like I didn't know where my
Your
ankles were anymore.
yeah. Your toes are all like one thing with your foot kind of
Yeah, like
thing.
my hands, like I had
You
to
were
take off my
swole.
wedding ring. I couldn't even wear my wedding ring anymore. Like
Yeah.
I was so
Could
swollen,
just
like
let
just
her know when she was married.
so yeah, so I got hospitalized for three nights, 4 days. So Jeff, of course, had to grab my belongings like from home just to
Yeah.
make sure that I was like occupied for those 3 days.
Sitting in the hospital.
Sitting in a hospital eating hospital food is not
No?
not like at all the greatest. Like it
You
is like
you don't recommend the food?
no, like
Are
10
you
out of
sure?
10 do not recommend.
Yeah, you don't like the jello and the what else
I
did they
mean, it
serve
was
you?
like it's food, right? Like it's food, but
Got nothing else, I guess.
yeah, it was terrible. And like the portions for like a pregnant lady, like I would have thought would have been a lot bigger.
Yeah, I remember you coming home and telling me like, "Oh, I'd ask the nurse at night, be like, hey, is there any food? I'm kind of hungry," and they'd be like, "Oh, you want a sandwich?
Yeah,
We'll get another one for you."
I'd always get like one or two sandwiches per night because I was just starving. Like
Yeah,
I was so hungry.
living away.
But yeah, so they ended up putting me on, it was called labetalol,
Yeah,
which is perfectly safe in pregnancies, just to control my blood pressure,
I
which,
think it's like the pretty common thing for just
yeah,
pregnant blood pressure, unless you have
yeah,
bad reaction or something.
yeah. So they put me on that, and that was controlling it at the time. And they did non-stress tests, I think, if I remember correctly, in the morning and at night, just to make sure that he was good.
Mm-hmm.
And they never said anything wasn't good. So I just,
Yeah,
no news is good news usually. So I just assumed everything was good. So by the fourth day, they had discharged me. I was home for 1 day and 1 night. And then the
yeah,
next day, I believe we went out in the morning, did a Costco run, and then we went to, I remember, Firehouse Subs.
yeah.
And I
Oh,
remember,
fire subs.
yeah, right, so good.
Yeah,
And I remember prior to that, I wasn't like feeling 100% that morning.
yeah.
Because usually he would move around a lot when I was eating.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember saying to you, like, after our grocery run or whatever, I was like, we were eating outside, and I was like, I don't feel him moving,
Yeah,
like, at all. And you're like, okay, well, let's just see how the day goes. So we just kind of carried on, hoping that, it would get better and then I'd feel him or whatever. And like every once in a while, I would feel like just like a very subtle, like, hey, I'm here.
yeah,
But he wasn't super active that day. And we were actually going out to the trailer, to Jeff's mom and dad's trailer that day. And it was super, super hot out. But I was feeling better because I could feel him
yeah.
and he was moving, and like he would kind of give me nudges every once in a while saying, hey, I'm here. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. And like I was feeling better. It was super hot. I wasn't doing anything strenuous. I was literally sitting in a chair outside with my like ice cold water beside me.
You had an
And
adult coloring book.
yeah, either that or like my game on my phone,
Yeah.
like, and with my feet up. And it was time to take my blood pressure because the doctor wanted me to do it like 3 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I never liked doing it because it always scared me because I
Yeah.
would always have high blood pressures. But so yeah, so I went into the trailer. I cooled down for a few minutes before I took it because there's no point in taking it when you're super, super hot. You're just going to have a really high blood pressure reading. And so I waited the 15 minutes. The air conditioning was on in the trailer. I sat down, I relaxed, and then I took my blood pressure, and I don't remember what the reading was.
It was like 160 something like 164, 165 over 110.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous. And I was
Yeah.
like, no. I was like, no, that's not right. So we actually took your blood pressure
Hmm.
and your mom's, and you guys were both reading fine. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. So then I waited the 15 minutes, because that's what they say, for it to go down. And I waited and I took it again, and it actually had went up. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, that's really weird. And I'm pretty sure I took it a third time just to be
Yeah, we tried a few times and
like
then
quite a few times.
we
And
decided,
then I said to Jeff, I was like, no, we better go now. Because I think I was reading something crazy like 161, I think it was like 150 something over 108. And then it jumped to like 110. And I was like, okay, no, we need to go, and we need to go now.
yeah.
So we went to the general, and I went through triage. And of course, this was still COVID times. So like Jeff wasn't even able to come through triage.
Yeah. So I kind of dropped you off because you knew where to go and they kind of knew you up
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I'll drop you off and I'm going to go home. I'll grab all your crap. And
Because I thought I was just going to be in there for like a few
yeah, be in the
days and then
hospital for a few days like last
discharged.
time. Like you spent the 3 days or 4 days or whatever it was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so you went to go get my stuff. And then I was in triage with the nurse. And she hooked me up to the NST, the non stress test. And she, like, usually the nurses leave because they can see you on the screen out in like the reception area, but she wasn't leaving the room. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's like really weird. And she actually told me I'm not leaving, because she didn't like what she saw on the non-stress test. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like trying to explain to me like what these lines meant and yada yada. And she actually asked me, has anyone checked for dilation?
Mm-hmm.
And I was 33 weeks at this point. And I was like, no, because I haven't been having any cramps that I would think are contractions, like maybe cramps here and there, because I thought my uterus is stretching, like something just normal that happens. And she's like, okay, do you mind if I have the OB on call? Come and check you. I was like, yeah, that's fine. And then the OB came in and they checked me, and I was already 1 centimeter dilated. I had no idea. And then they were watching, so they were watching like the reports of the non-stress test, and they were saying, in fact, that I was having contractions, but I didn't know I was having them. And then another nurse, I believe, came in triage and hooked me up to an IV just in case, is what they say.
Just in case.
I'm just like not feeling warm and fuzzy at this point. And so they took me out of triage and put me in a room. And there I thought, okay, like they've have me hooked up just in case. They still have me hooked up to the non-stress test just to watch the baby and whatever. And I remember being in that room as this girl is like putting the IV in my arm, and I'm watching the monitor because like at this point I'm very concerned. And like I just remember looking over, and there were, I believe, 2 nurses in the room. One was on my arm, and then one was watching the monitor. And I saw I was having a contraction, and like the monitor for Liam's oxygen like went from the top and just trickled all the way down. And like all I heard her say is, no, go up, go up, go up, go up, go up. Please go up, please go up, please go up. He wasn't handling my contractions. He was in a lot of distress. And yeah, very stressful situation. So actually they did do a bedside ultrasound right away. I had a whole bunch of nurses just like run into the room when that happened because the monitors were beeping at that point. I was like, holy shit, like what's actually happening?
Yeah.
And they did an ultrasound. My fluids were fine. He seemed fine. And I remember them asking me when you would be back. I was like, I don't know, like I'd have to call him. And yeah, so I called you.
Yeah. Somewhere in the I was somewhere on the road. I was on the highway, I
Yeah.
think, getting close, and you're calling me like, "Oh, where are you? Like, are you almost here?" kind of thing. But like, you were obviously not like that happy. You're
Yeah.
pretty distressed. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, "Are you almost here?" Like, blah blah blah. And I was like, "Yeah, I think so."
Like 10
Like,
minutes.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, perfect. And then I told the nurse or the doctor, I was like, oh, he's going to be here in like 10 minutes. He's almost here. And she's like, okay, perfect. And then you came into the hospital to get like checked in or whatever
yeah.
to get to
It
me.
was such a pain that butt. It was just like because the way the hostel was set up because of the COVIDs, like you had to park and then you go into the main entrance
You
and
get screened.
yeah, you had to get screened, so you had to go up this table, get a thing, and you had to say where you're going, and then at the table down there, they're in their no everything, fucking the whole gown, everything's on their face, and they have to phone up to the floor and be like, "Oh, we have this person here to come see this person,"
Yeah.
and then so after they figure out that's okay, then I head up to the maternity ward, and I go over to the desk there, and I'm like, my wife Jenna, whatever, blah blah blah. And then the girl just looked at me and she goes, "What size scrubs are you?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, what size do you wear?" And I was like, probably like a extra large, I think. And
Not knowing.
I was like, is she
Is she
like, I was like,
okay?
she all right, or is she having like, are we having a baby or something? And like, she's like, just a second, and then like she just like checked something. She goes, "Okay, just 1 second." She went and grabbed the scrubs, gave them to me, and led me to the room. And then, yeah, and I just went in. I was like, I looked at Jen. I was like, "Is this happening today?" And she's like, "Yeah." I think that's it, eh?
Yeah, literally. Yeah, like I got rushed down for the
Yeah,
emergency C-section. And yeah, like it was super rush. Like it was just such a blur at that
yeah,
point.
yeah. It was really crazy at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got rushed down to the C-section,
Yep.
emergency C-section, and they were having a hard time. I remember putting the spinal in. They poked me like I want to say like 10 times before they got where it needed to be.
Yeah, you're talking about suffering here, but I was out in the hallway because I wasn't allowed to be in there because it's a procedure while you're getting a spinal. So
Yeah.
I was in the hallway sitting on this hard stool. It was pretty rough for me sitting there for like 40 minutes.
40 minutes
Yeah,
with
like
no update.
I would just like sitting there with my thoughts to race and freak out and be like, "Oh, I hope to God they're fine in there," and all this good stuff. And
Yeah, because you wouldn't have been able to come in at all if they wouldn't have gotten the
yeah, they would have had to
spinal
put you
in.
under general anesthetic then.
Yeah.
And I was like, is something going wrong? Like, are they just taking the baby out now without me in there, kind of thing? And then, like, a few minutes later, I hear Jenna and a bunch of the nurses going, "Ha ha 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 ha,"
Joking around.
and I'm like out here sweating bullets and
Yeah.
pacing back and forth. I couldn't sit still. And you're in there just having a good old
Yeah,
time.
just joking around the
Yeah,
nurses,
that's it.
trying to bring a positive light
Yeah,
to what's happening here. Basically, that's how I'm
yeah,
handling my stress at this point is just trying to joke around and take my mind off it basically.
yeah. Remember that?
But yeah, and then I think a nurse came to get you once they did finally get the spinal in where it needed to be. And then it wasn't very long after that. And it was maybe like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and Liam was out.
Yeah,
The OB that delivered him said, "Kate, he's out." And they took him away so quickly.
yeah,
I didn't get to see him. I didn't get to hear him. They just
yeah.
said he's out, and that's all I knew. And
Yeah, they just pretty much took him right to another room, and
yeah, like
that's it. I think they just took him right out of you, threw him on the scale, and then they
and then took him
took him
out.
right into the other room.
Yeah,
Not like threw him on the scale, but you know what I mean.
yeah, but very quickly because he wasn't breathing on his own. I don't
Yeah.
think at that point. I don't know. But yeah, so it was like super stressful, and then like Jeff was like still there with me, and I'm like, is he okay? Like, is he breathing? Like, I didn't know what was going on. Like, I started crying, I remember, on the table because I didn't hear him cry.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what was going on. And then that's when you were able to go out and see him, I
Yeah,
think.
someone did tell us that he was doing all right.
Yeah, so
One
I
of the
think
nurses or doctors.
one of the people that gave me, I think it was either that gave me the anesthetic or something like that, said he's doing fine. Like, he's in the other room. They're just hooking him up and doing the tests that they need to do. But you got to go and see him.
Yeah, so they took me to the other room. And basically, yeah, the first time getting to see him was him just like laying on this table, eyes are closed, CPAP machine hooked up, bunch of just different tubes and stuff, wires hanging off the little guy. Yeah, it just really fucking sucks. But
Yeah.
that was, yeah, my first experience. And like, I was like scared. I'm like, am I allowed to like touch him? They're like,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, I just was like, what in the hell? And his fingers were like my
Tiny.
maybe like one knuckle.
Yeah, he weighed
Maybe that.
3 pounds, 7 ounces.
Yeah, he was small.
Yeah, it still looked like a little alien.
Yeah, 100%. Poor guy. Luckily, they
Yeah.
had him under a heat lamp, so he was probably
Well,
nice
yeah.
and cozy.
Yeah, because he can't regulate his temperature at that
No.
point. But yeah, so they did the testing and stuff like that, and then they sewed me up, and I asked them if I was going to be able to see him afterwards, and that just kind of all depended on what time it was and if the NICU nurses were okay with that and stuff like that, because he was very fresh and needed to be watched pretty closely. But I was able to see him before I went to my room that we settled in for the night. And I literally...
You ever seen him for the first time?
What's that?
You remember when you saw him the first time?
Like, all I could do is like put my hand through the little hole in like the incubator or whatever it's called, and
touch him, and
I got to touch him. He was so soft.
He was soft.
He was so soft.
His skin was like still like kind of like wrinkly though. You remember
Yeah,
that?
wrinkly
Like, he
and
was, like,
peach fuzzes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Poor
super
guy.
soft. But yeah, so I got to see him, and then
Yeah, we finally got settled.
Yeah, we finally got settled. He was in the NICU. The CPAP machine was on for, I think, like overnight and the next day. And then he was off the CPAP and on regular oxygen, which was really, really good.
Yeah, I can remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so we were really happy with that. We're like, okay, things are going up, and he was gaining weight, so they...
well, he lost a lot of weight
He lost
initially.
a ton of weight, like more than the standard amount allowed. He lost 12%, I think.
12? I thought it was like, well, 13.
13% of his body weight. And that's pretty substantial for a little guy. I think he was, like he was just so tiny. I just remember him being so tiny and so fragile. And like the next day after having my C-section, I was super sick.
Yeah.
Just from like the drugs that they put in with my spinal. I couldn't hardly keep anything down, but I remember going and see him, and like we were so scared to even hold him. Like we asked, we're like, are we allowed to hold him? Or like they asked us actually, they're like, did you want to hold him? And we're like, yes, but no, because he's so fragile, and he had his CPAP on, and there was a tube in his mouth, and all these other
everything.
wires monitoring all of his vital signs.
Yeah.
So it was just like, yeah, it was crazy. So we had the nurse hand him to us because we didn't want to like
pick him up,
hurt him.
Yeah, and just got to cuddle him, and
that was super nice.
Yeah.
And then after that, so we took quite a few trips to different hospitals.
Yeah,
So we
definitely
went
toured
the city.
greater Ottawa area.
Yeah. So basically, we went from the General, which he was doing well, and then we went to Montfort.
Yeah, so it was a less intensive
Right.
NICU.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it was just a different baby to nurse ratio, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was like one nurse to like three babies instead of one nurse, one baby, one nurse, one baby, something
Yeah,
like that.
because yeah, general was like 1-to-1,
1 to 1. Yeah.
and then I think Montfort was might have been 3-to-1,
Yeah.
or I think 5-to-1 would med their numbers, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
So it was much less intensive
but
care.
the COVID rules between the Ottawa
Oh my
General
God.
and Montfort. So at Ottawa General, we were both allowed to go in the room together. We were both allowed
Yeah.
to visit at the same time, kind of thing. We went to Montfort. Only one of us could go in
At
the
a
room at the
time.
same time. And so we'd come to see our baby, and
We couldn't do it together.
yeah, so we'd have to. We figured out a
Switch out
workaround where one of us could go into like kind of like a stock room almost, and wait around until the other one was visiting him for an hour or
an
two, and
hour.
then
Yeah.
the other one comes back and sees him. Like,
Yeah. I remember like the first time we were able to bath him together, we were just ecstatic. Because
yeah,
we're like, oh my God, we actually get to handle him like we would if he was at home.
well, he was so
He
like,
was tiny. It was
in the
scary.
bathtub. Remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh. Did we do the wrap up technique first?
No, that
No.
was at the General where they just kind of.
Tossed him in there.
Oh yeah, he was so mad. He was so mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like at the General, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna give him his first bath or whatever." Blah blah blah. And we're thinking, "Okay, great." Like
They just
whatever. And they just basically took his diaper off, and he was nice and cozy in his little
the receiving blanket. Or
in his
something?
receiving blanket there. And then they're like, "All right." He's probably not gonna like this, and sure enough, he didn't. He just turned like beet red.
Yeah.
And just cried. They basically just stripped him of his clothes and then like
Yeah.
threw him in a tub of water.
Oh yeah, he did not like that.
He was so mad.
At Montfort though, they did a better trick though.
Yeah,
which was,
so I like that's the thing. So this trick that we learned at Montfort, like I would recommend to any new parent or parent to
if
be.
you got like a little babe that doesn't like baths, it's
Yeah.
yeah. So you take their clothes off and then you wrap them in their blanket, like their receiving blanket, and then you just
Submerge them.
you submerge them in water in that, and then you take the blanket off once they're in, obviously.
Yeah,
but-
like you unwrap it slowly or whatever you do, but you submerge them first, then you unwrap the blanket because it's
Yeah.
not a shock, the temperature shock change. It's not there because they're warm and the water's warm. So therefore they like it a lot better. I wish we would have known that.
Yeah, but he
way
he
before.
really liked that. Even
He
Lily
loved
likes it.
that. Yeah. And we did that with Lily too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's how she got used to her baths. And, I don't think she cried once when we did that here. But yeah, so we learned that at Montfort. And then he was having, what they call desats. So desaturations, his blood oxygen levels. They were trying to figure out as to why he was having those. So Montfort did a couple of tests that were available there. But then they weren't getting any better, but they weren't really getting any worse. So I know they were talking with Chio for quite some time, waiting for a bed to be open for him. So we were on the road again. We went back and we went to Chio, where we spent just shy of 3 months of his whole life.
Yeah.
Being, poked and prodded at.
Oh, yeah. For those that don't know, Chio is literally attached to the other side of Ottawa General Hospital. So we went from Ottawa General to Montfort, and then
Back
pretty much back to
the General.
the General, but it's Chio, not the General.
Yeah, where Chio has all the resources to do all the
Different testing, and they check for everything.
And like he was literally tested every test you could possibly think
Yeah.
of, he did.
Well, we were in hospital for so long because he just kept having the DSATs all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and we jumped from NICU, like the intensive unit,
Yeah.
on the floor to having our own room, to NICU on our own, to on our own in our own room with like a neighbor,
Yeah, I
back
remember
to
that.
NICU. Like,
Well, it wasn't like NICU. It was just more like a more
3 patients to 1 nurse.
yeah, kind of yeah.
Yeah,
But the nurse was in the room.
at all times.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's what it was.
yeah. And then yeah, like I
They were all
just
usually like relatively nice. Like all the
oh yeah,
nurses
super
were pretty
nice,
good.
super nice.
There's one instance where we had one. She was having a bad day, but I think she's from a different floor.
Yeah.
And then she turned over a new leaf partway through the day. So I think
Yeah,
she's just like
I was having a really bad day that day too.
yeah. But
Just the mental stress
every day.
every
Yeah.
day of being at the hospital just got to me.
Yeah.
Got to us, really.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, because every day would start the same. You'd wake up. Well, you're at Chio, so one of us could stay overnight at Chio. They only have room for one person to stay. Um, so whoever was there would wake up with Liam in the morning, whatever Liam's schedule is. He'd like to sleep a lot because he's just really premature.
Yeah,
Sleep and sleep and
always
sleep.
tired.
Yeah. First thing, 8 a.m. was
A heel poke.
yeah, heel poke. So doctor coming to poke the heel, take a blood sample because they're trying to check for CO2, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure he's expelling
And
it.
then, yeah, and then we would have doctors would do a round, like they'd come and
Their teams would come
talk
in and talk and
around 9 or 10,
assess,
something like that.
reassess him.
Yeah, and then be like, okay, so today you're gonna go get, not an MRI, but like actually you did have an MRI.
Yeah,
didn't
he
you?
had every test in the
MRI,
book done.
maybe an X-ray. Then maybe they're gonna do imaging on his digestive tract. They're gonna do this. They're gonna do this. They're gonna check the lungs out,
His kidneys, it's just
kidneys.
from head to toe, this poor
Yeah.
kid.
He had a lot, and it was every day. Three
And
three
the-
months, give or take.
Yeah, and the blood work every single day.
Yeah, and they were taking a lot of blood from
A
him.
lot,
Not
because
just like the heel
babies,
poke, but like they had actual blood.
like arms, yeah, and like vials of blood. Like these babies don't
Yeah.
produce the blood cells like a regular adult would. So they need time to get those blood cells going so that they can take blood. And I remember one day I was just changing him or whatever, and I think you were there with me. And I looked at him and I said, Jeff, I said, he doesn't look right. Like he looks really pale.
Yeah.
Like, and he's not moving. Like usually he would like move a little bit when you're changing his diaper or whatever. Like he would wake up. That's how we woke him up, really, was changing his diapers, and then he
Yeah.
would have his bottle or
Yeah,
whatever.
he was just like
He was
almost
just
lifeless.
He literally lifeless. He was just laying there, and I'm like, this isn't right. And yeah, sure enough, he was super anemic from all the blood testing that they were doing every day.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to one of the head doctors that was on his file, and I was asking them, I was like telling him, I was like, we need to stop doing blood work. Like he can't handle it anymore. Like he is so anemic. So yeah, I had to basically tell him to stop.
Yeah.
And then
They did stop for a couple days.
they did, and they did have to actually give him a couple of blood transfusions because he was so anemic, and that did help. But then I was getting frustrated because they gave him two transfusions, and then they went right back straight to taking blood again, and I'm like, no, like you need to give him a break, because it's just a vicious circle at this point. Like you're putting in blood just to take it out.
Yeah, I think that was one of the points where we were like tired of, I think, a lot of arbitrary tests.
Yeah, just weren't needing to be done right away.
Yeah, it wasn't things like you didn't need to like
They
do it
weren't
all
urgent.
at once kind of thing. Yeah.
And that's what we ended up telling them. Like, can we just do the blood work that you need now?
Yeah.
And then we can do the other stuff later to give him a break.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because
Sakes.
I couldn't believe it. This, like, poor baby.
Yeah.
And
There's not much you
then,
can
what?
do. There's not much you could have, like, done. Like, we tried to do our best to protect him, really.
Yeah. And, like, the hard part about the hospital is, like, you hate to say this about your own kid, but it's like, it was really hard to get a connection with our own baby
Yeah.
because there were always doctors stepping in to do their assessments or, you know, to do a treatment, or we had to wheel him to an appointment somewhere. Like, we never, like, we did have our alone time with him, yes, but like, it was always interrupted. Like,
And then you're always having the stress of the hospital.
and the monitor's always beeping
Yeah,
at you. Like,
so-
we were never relaxed.
Because he was on oxygen a lot, so we could only go. I think we could stretch him maybe like 3 feet away from his crib, like if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you didn't hold him right, like he wouldn't get the
Desat.
oxygen properly. So then the machine would just go beep 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 beep
Yeah.
beep, beep all the time.
So we were like always on edge.
Yeah.
Always on edge, always trying to switch his position so that, like, we were always watching the monitor, always watching the numbers to
Yeah.
make sure that he was breathing, or he was, you know, he had enough oxygen. But yeah, it was just crazy times. And then the other thing was his feeds. Even, like, this little guy didn't even have the stamina to eat.
Yeah. So he had
So
tube in for
yeah,
feeding.
he had the tube, so they ended up moving the tube from his mouth into his nose when he got to Chio, which was a lot better because he had really dry lips, and the
Yeah.
tape on his lips and his chin and stuff. It just didn't look nice. So it was a little bit better on his nose, until he figured out how to start pulling it out of his nose.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, like, he only had the stamina to do like 5 cc's, if
Something like
that.
of formula and like breast milk mixture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were doing like breast milk, but mixed with a fortifier to
Yeah.
add more calories, right?
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, which was just the formula. Yeah.
But yeah, he could barely eat anything when it started.
So then the rest would go through his tube. Whatever he didn't finish, he would have through his tube. And like,
And it's all monitored too, right? Like
Yeah.
the amount that he had to eat.
you had to write it down.
Yeah. No, we didn't have to. Not in a hospital.
Oh, not in hospital.
No, because in hospital it was like this is how much he's getting, and then whatever he didn't eat went through the tube, and then
Yeah.
we had to feed him every 3 hours, no matter what. And that continued on for quite some time.
Yeah, and like if he was too tired to even wake up for a feed, it would just go through
Yeah.
the tube. Like,
And then
we
I
wouldn't
remember
even
like
bother.
some days he would only gain like 10 grams, and they're like, we need him to gain 30 grams a day.
And he had really bad acid
Or
reflux.
it might not have been a day. That might be because that's an ounce a day. That doesn't make sense. But maybe. But yeah, they would be like, he needs to gain more.
Yeah, so like, yeah, and he was
And
a
they
really refluxy baby.
Yeah, tons of reflux. So he had that reflux shit
He'd
that
always,
you'd always give him.
he would always spit up constantly.
Poor guy.
So yeah, he was on a whole bunch of different medications that we had to put through his tube first thing in the morning. And just the maintenance of that tube alone was such a huge stress. I mean, thank God in the hospital, like, the nurses were always on top of it. They were really
Yeah, they're
good.
always willing to help. and do
Really,
stuff
really
for you.
good.
Yeah.
And like overnight, like, some of the nurses like even told us, like, don't worry about getting up. Like, we'll
The one
change
nurse just
him.
loved cuddling him.
Yeah. Like,
Remember?
oh, if he needs cuddles, don't worry about it.
I remember
Like,
waking
got
up
it.
when like he started making some noise, and I was about to get up, and she's like, "No, don't worry, I got it."
And which
She
was
just loved holding
super
the baby.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
she was
super
really nice.
nice. And like the one guy, like the one night, I just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
Like, as bad as that sounded, like, or as that sounds,
Well, you
like,
needed the break, right? Like both of us, like it was hard because
yeah,
we would spend hours at the hospital, and then
all day
one of us would go home for the night and then come back in the
in the
usually
morning. Yeah. So like both of us were there all day, and then one of us stayed at night.
Yeah. So, like,
And we would alternate.
Our entire life was just the hospital for 3 months. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
It was insane.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so like I think it was September 28th, was our day that we
Was
got.
that the day that we finally went home?
We finally got discharged. September 28th. He was born on July 3rd.
Woo. Yeah, so almost 4 months?
Almost 3. Yeah, just shy of 3.
Well, no, it's almost 4, right? July, October, or
July, August, September.
October. I can count.
I can't.
Yeah, that was almost 4 months, right? Like
Yeah.
3.25, 3.75, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so like he had to have called oximetry.
Overnight oximetry.
Overnight oximetry to make sure he was sleeping well, getting enough oxygen,
all that good stuff.
not pausing too much in his breathing during the night.
Big thing. That was what
he would hold his breath. Or
yeah, it was holding his breath.
He was holding his breath, but they were concerned that it was something in the brain not telling him to breathe again.
Yeah.
So they wanted to make sure that he would fix himself majority of the time and the oxygen will go back up and he'd be fine. But the odd time it would dip pretty low.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we passed that. I was so happy. Oh, I was so relieved because I was like, okay, we are going home. I don't know when, but we are going home.
Yeah, it was a great time.
And then I remember the one doctor said, you can stay here, for the next little while, or you can go home with the feeding tube. I did not want to go home with the feeding tube.
It was much more worth it to get out of that fucking hospital.
Yeah, I did not want to go home with the feeding tube just because it's such a pain. And it's just one extra thing that we have to worry about. And like, if you were to pull it out, like at least they did train you on how to put it back in and how to check if it's in the right place and not in his lungs and check the pH.
Little foreshadowing here.
Yeah. It's just like, it was crazy. Like, you can explain a little better than I can because
it was pretty easy to figure it out. You just had to.
I didn't feel comfortable
push it into his nose.
Pushing the tube into his nose. So I didn't do any of that.
You did try it though, because we both had to be knowing how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I heard them, but
no.
They're good. They're sleeping right now. Their monitors. But yeah, we did that, and then whatever, and they were like, "Yeah, that's good, sweet,
perfect."
And then I remember we went home, and it was just like,
it was bittersweet.
Yeah.
We were
Mickey was excited.
Mickey was super excited to meet his brother.
Bring me. He's just sniffing and seeing the dog.
I remember that day.
I forgot to include we ended up moving to our house during this period too.
Oh yes.
While he was in the hospital.
2 weeks after he was born.
Yeah.
We moved to where we are now.
Yeah, we were buying the house while you were having your high blood pressure stuff.
Yeah, like things were still going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got married. Moved the weekend after we got married. Had Liam. Moved 2 weeks after we had Liam. Yeah. We moved 2 weeks after we had Liam.
Oh, that's
July 16th.
Yeah, but we got married and then like a year after.
Yeah, I know.
We had Liam. Not like right after. No,
obviously.
Not that busy.
No, but we like to keep ourselves on our toes, I guess.
So yeah, Mickey was just so excited. He was sniffing Liam and he loved him.
Yeah. And then we were like, okay, we're home.
Right.
We didn't even know what to do with ourselves because like we were so used to the hospital life.
It was just like quiet and like no beeping. He wasn't hooked up to a machine. He only had the tube in.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was just a completely different feeling, right?
Yeah, it was a weird feeling. A scary feeling for sure.
It's like one of those things like, I should remember every moment about being home with him the first day, but like I don't remember.
We don't, because we were so worried about the tube and its placement and how much he was eating and how
Yeah.
much he wasn't eating.
And it was just like, oh, now we have to make sure we warm up the bottle. And we have to make sure we do this. And we make sure we do this.
Yeah,
And we
make
have to
sure
do this.
we clean out his tube.
We had to make the fortifier, and then we had to mix that with breast milk at
K-Xylate,
that point. Okay, Xylate for the fucking potassium
liver,
shit.
yeah,
And
or
then,
kidneys.
Yeah, that was another fun thing. But anyways, yeah. So that was that. And then, yeah, just the responsibility of just being home, I guess, right? And
Yeah.
then we, yeah,
And
the
then
very first night. So we had the bed in the bedroom, and
the bassinet, yeah.
bassinet was on my side, just because on Jenna's side it wasn't really didn't make sense with the room because you're like by the
Yeah, and
window
I
stuff.
would have literally been staring over, watching
Yeah,
him
so I was
sleep.
like, I'll keep him on my side just to be on the safe side. Anyways, we went to sleep, all that good stuff, and wake up partway through the night with him screaming, and I'm like, oh, I gotta check on him, and then I'm like, oh shit, he pulled his tube out. Luckily, not 100% out of the way, but he pulled it out.
Yeah.
So we had to go into the other room and feed that back in, and you had to check.
I
the
didn't
placement.
believe you. I didn't believe you at first because
Yeah.
I was like still kind of groggy, just kind of still waking up or whatever. I was like, no, he didn't. You're like, look. So I remember like leaning over the bed and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
He did. And he even had mitts on.
Yeah. Just like
Just,
yanked
yeah,
it.
got like his thumb stuck or something and just accidentally grabbed it.
Hold on it.
And so, yeah, that was fun.
Put it back in and
Make sure it's in his stomach. So we would, you know, take out
Yeah.
some of.
yeah, we always had to you had to like check for the pH to see if you're getting stomach acid.
That it wasn't in his lungs.
And like he started getting to a point like that was happening in hospital too, where like it would get sucked against the side of his belly so it wouldn't pull anything.
And you were like, oh shit.
Yeah. But no, that was good. So that was bringing him home.
This is our experience of being first time parents.
First time parents, it's great. It's
Like,
wonderful.
it was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
The train or
was
like
stress,
the
like-
chain of events that had happened.
It
Like,
was a stressful pregnancy.
high stress.
He was born early. And then
He was in hospital for 3
stressful
months.
For 3 months. 3.5 months, really.
Yeah.
And then even afterwards, we had to do so many follow-up doctors.
Yeah, like we had the OT, we had a dietitian come to the house.
We had to do sleep
studies still. And
And then we had his doctor and then the pediatric doctor.
yeah, so his regular general physician, and then we had the pediatric doctor.
Yeah.
And then I remember
Cardiology at one
cardiology,
point.
respirology,
All of them. And then he still had to go back for blood work. Quite a
blood
bit.
work.
And then he had to go, because it was the winter time, RSV vaccine every single month. It's 1 shot a month. Yay, flu. Did we do flu shot? I think we did. The second year.
6 months.
Yeah, and
6
then all of
months,
his other
yeah.
like shots. And in hospital, for some reason, they didn't give him his
2 month or 3 month shot.
his regular shots, right?
Yeah, and they should have
So then
because
we
he
had to
got
get it.
behind.
And we had to get it afterwards, kind of thing.
Yeah, so he had a lot more shots, and then yeah, his RSV shots he was getting up until like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, something like that.
We stopped doing those because he was, and the nurses were really good. It's just they don't sugarcoat it. They hurt a lot. The RSV burns when it goes in, and they put them through their legs. It's no joke.
They tell you beforehand, like, this one really sucks to get.
Yeah.
Anyways, he has a fear of needles and doctors and anyone in scrubs.
Yeah, blue scrubs,
Any scrubs,
anything,
really.
he knows. I remember his 18-month checkup. It was supposed to be just like a quick physical exam and then get his shots. And the second you even put him on that table,
Yeah, he lost it.
he just lost it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even undress him. for her to even
Yeah.
look at him. I mean, she basically asked me, like, do you have any concerns? Nope. Okay, great. And I picked him back up, and the nurse that was giving him his shot or whatever, I just told her, quick and dirty, get it done.
Yeah.
And I said, and the other thing is, like, he's so used to so much pain all the time. Even as simple as taking a Band-Aid off is, it was a huge deal to him.
Oh, anything.
Anything to do with that, because it would remind him of what happened, I think. And also he probably just didn't like the sensation of a Band-Aid being ripped off his skin. So like we would try to do it slowly in the bathtub, and like it just was a fight every time, and we just got to the point where we were just like, don't worry about the Band-Aid. Like, I'm not.
It's just too much to deal with.
It's just way too much.
Yeah, so that's our first experience becoming parents. It never felt like we left the hospital, I think, for like a good year and a bit, like afterwards.
Yeah, because we were
like,
constantly having people come out to the house and weigh him, and dietitian appointments and phone call appointments and Zoom, and then the sleep studies. You had to still bring him into CHEO for that.
Yeah.
It was just crazy.
And then, so that was our very first one. Our second one was extremely close behind. So, I blame Jenna for this one. She said you couldn't get pregnant while breastfeeding. So
that's what Dr. Google said, okay?
That's what Dr. Google said. But, when did we find out we were pregnant with her?
We found out February.
This one's a much quicker story.
Yeah, February the year after. We would have conceived in November. Yeah. Because she was due in August, and Liam was actually due in August, so we conceived her in November as well. And then we found out in February.
Yeah, something like that. So February, roughly.
Yeah, so I went into the doctors because of something else, and like I just had this like weird feeling that like I could have been pregnant again, and I was like, I said to the doctor, and it wasn't my actual doctor because she was filling in for my doctor for for maternity leave, actually.
Her favorite thing to do.
No, we're not even going to get into that. But so I said I was getting blood work to do for something else that was going on, and then I said, can you just throw a pregnancy test on there just for the hell of it? Because I just want to make sure, that's all. And she's like, oh yeah, no problem, blah, blah, blah. And then they said, yeah, we'll call you for the results or whatever. I think it was like the day after.
It was something, it was pretty recent or quick.
Yeah, it was very fast.
Yeah.
You were home, and I put you on speakerphone on purpose because I had a feeling that I was pregnant. And sure enough, she's like, well, your HCG levels are up. So, yep, that's a positive pregnancy. And like both of us like looked at each other and we were just like,
yeah,
like we didn't even know what to say.
It was like, what?
Yeah. And like even the doctor was like, surprise? It's like, it's like, I was like, okay. That's literally my response. I was like, okay. Yeah. So basically, I was pregnant with our second, so Lily. And
so for her, 100% completely normal pregnancy.
Yeah.
And birth was a C-section because
scheduled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was late.
Yeah, she was 40 weeks and 40 weeks and 2 days. I was ready for her to come.
Perfectly normal pregnancy, perfectly normal birth.
No issues whatsoever.
Perfectly normal, and it was a nice change from Liam.
Yeah, it was. It was nice to actually experience, you know, like the movements that we missed with Liam in my belly. Like it was like she was just kicking me and doing gymnastics in my belly, and
does gymnastics.
Yeah, like she constantly moved, that girl, during the night, everything. Like Liam just didn't.
No, he was always like pretty low
Pretty
key.
low key. Like every once in a while, you'd feel a kick here and there.
Hmm.
But she was just constantly kicking me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so like we've had it both ways. Like we've had the preemie side, and then we've also had the full term baby side.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been,
Obviously, if you have to choose, it's always the the full side.
yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
shit happens though. Like,
Yeah.
Lily was just a perfectly normal pregnancy,
Yeah.
completely different from our experience with Liam, which was,
Yeah.
I mean, a nice change. Like,
It was a nice change, but it was also like when Lily came, I felt like we had to relearn
there was a lot
how
of
to be
stuff, right?
parents. Yeah.
It was like the sleeping at night and the making sure she's eating
Yeah,
and
because Liam
all
was
that good
like
stuff.
trained from the NICU. I mean,
Yeah.
like sadly, but like not sadly
Yeah,
because
he was
like
trained to sleep from the NICU.
yeah, he's always been a great sleeper. He always sleeps the night. But it's like now it's like, okay, Lily's up like, like as a newborn, like cluster feeding even or whatever, like every 2 to 3 hours to be fed. And it's like it's just a
Yeah.
completely different ball game with Lily than it was with
Yeah,
Liam.
100%. Yeah, in terms of baby phase, like she's pretty much hitting every milestone like she's supposed to.
Yeah.
Liam was always just a little bit later and a little bit slower, but they say that with the
Expected.
preemies, it's more
Yeah.
expected.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and now they're both freaking healthy, silly,
Goofing
crazy.
off,
Yeah.
growing, thriving.
So even though we had all that stress, like it can't even like fathom it anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's like you remember the feelings and the stress from it, but you can't. I can't put myself back there.
No, like we've overcome so much
Yeah,
and we we don't like looking back at it, but it's like wow, like
yeah,
we really went through a lot with our first experience with pregnancy with
hmm
a baby.
yeah. Really did.
We really went through a lot.
And then there was another couple there that had like a
Yeah.
similar thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just like when you're in that situation, um, not a lot of people understand, or maybe they just don't want to try to understand, or they don't want to get involved. I guess what would be the best way to put it? Like,
I personally always say it's really hard to understand unless you've been in that situation.
yeah, and I don't think there. It's not necessarily the understanding. I think it's like the fact that um, not a lot of people reach out to like see how you're doing or whatever. Like people expect you to reach out and be like, I need help or stuff, but like you're not gonna admit that in that time.
No,
You're not gonna reach out to someone. Um, my mom did help us out a bit when we were in there.
she did.
Yeah, she gave us a few
Very
nights
much
off. That was awesome.
appreciated.
But for the most part, like, I don't think many people really messaged us or called us to check in.
See how things were
Um,
doing. We would always give them,
and yeah, we would give them heads up in like a group chat, but like
yeah, and like
even
updates and
friends
stuff.
didn't
But
really message. And I think that's a big thing. Like once you understand, like you have to be there for your other, and they have to be there for you, like your spouse or whoever it is. And it's just like you guys are your most important support network. And I think that's what the biggest thing through that experience was, right? Like
yeah, 100%.
figuring
Now that
that
we
out.
think back, like now that
Yeah.
we look back at it, it's like, wow, like we really, like, that was a very stressful time for us,
Hmm.
obviously.
And it just didn't feel like we could communicate with anyone.
No.
And I think that's part of the reason we kind of want to do the podcast
Yeah.
um, is a lot of people like with parenting with, yeah, you too, buddy, with, yeah, parenting in general, like sometimes people don't, you know,
They can't connect
can't
on a
connect.
personal level.
Um, or like your friends kind of drift apart, or like you're having kids and your friends aren't, then you're kind of drifting apart, or maybe you're just not able to
Or you're going through difficult
do things.
situations, but your friends aren't. Like your friends
Yeah,
are having, the perfect pregnancies
all this stuff,
and
and
you're having the very unheard of
yeah,
side of the pregnancies kind of thing.
we're kind of just rambling a little bit here,
Yeah.
but
But I
trying
think,
to trying to put words down is the hard part.
yeah, like I think honestly, like the biggest goal with the podcast is to be able to relate to other people and make others feel comfortable that, we've gone through rough shit too.
Yeah,
And it's okay.
yeah, it's okay. Family's good. Um, and then basically just that's pretty much it, right? Like we wanna relate to other parents, and we wanna share our stories. We want to share experiences. We want to have fun. Obviously, this episode is a little bit heavy, but we
Yeah.
we do like to be silly. We like to have fun and talk about just anything, whether your kids are doing something stupid or something that just makes you laugh your ass off, or
Yeah.
what's
Or even
yeah,
like want to
scream
pull
their
your
heads
hair
off.
out.
Yeah, like Lily's new thing is now she went from the perfect example of a diaper change. Now she just screams her head off the whole time, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Now we
why?
feel like we have a pterodactyl in the
It
house.
was literally overnight. She was just like, no.
She's like, no, I don't like
Now it's
this.
just temper tantrums. When she used to be like the literal perfect angel for diaper changes, and it was literally overnight. It was just
Like she
boom.
she was almost better trained than Mickey. Like to go out
Yeah,
to the bathroom, literally.
yeah,
Like I would say, "Oh, you need your butt changed," and she'd come over. She'd sit right in front of me. I'd say, "Sit," and she'd sit in front of me, and then she'd lay back on her own.
yeah.
I'd change her diaper. She'd be fine.
That's literally the next day. She's just like
She's
screaming
like,
her
"No, I
head
don't
off.
like it." But
But
that's just what parenting is like.
yeah,
It's there's no textbook for parenting.
no. And I think
You learn as you go.
yeah, in the future we're gonna definitely be bringing more informational things. Maybe talk about some of the different, I guess, milestones or different things to help your child develop, or things to look out for, that kind of stuff. And
And like what we've experienced or
yeah,
what we've noticed with milestones, like versus the preemie side versus
yeah,
the full term side,
yeah,
because it's completely different. It's a completely different ball game.
yeah. We plan on having interviews, I think, too, right? Eh?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, get a few
yeah,
people on and maybe just like hear different perspectives, different parenting styles, different stories,
and we're
some ups and
hoping
downs.
you can really relate, and learn, and even laugh
Yeah,
with us about stuff like silly stuff.
and just feel better that you're not the only one feeling what you're feeling, I
Yeah,
think is the best thing,
yeah. Everybody
right?
goes through it, whether you want to admit it or not. We're just
Yeah,
being a little more open about it, I guess. But yeah, like we're gonna probably wrap it up, but we'll leave I think an email, or at least we have a Facebook and an Instagram page.
yeah, we're still sorting it all out.
We're sorting it out,
It'll be in the
but
description.
but always feel free to like reach out to us with any questions or comments or advice or
Yeah,
ideas, even for like our next episodes and stuff like that. Because we're always looking for new things to talk about.
yeah.
I mean,
We'd
there's always something to talk about.
love to hear any sort of feedback and any
Yeah,
stories in general. Just
reach out,
yeah,
reach out.
know that we're being heard, and knowing that you're being heard when we see it.
We're an open book.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's it, eh?
that's it.
That's it. That's the first podcast
That's
down.
our very first podcast, guys.
We thank you if you listened all the way through, and
Yeah.
it'll be that's the reason we're successful, is the people who are listening, right?
Exactly.
That's going to keep us going.
Yeah. So hit that follow button, subscribe,
All the above.
all the above.
Yeah.
Like I said, always, if you have questions, even on our story, with both sides of the fence there, like, feel free to reach out. We'll answer questions. And yeah, I think that's a good point. Give us some feedback. Tell us what you thought about our first episode, and
Tell us things you'd like to hear. It's not
yeah.
always going to be this serious of a topic.
Yeah, exactly. No, this one was a heavy subject today.
We just wanted you to know about us.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah.
That's the real life of parenting, and I'm Jeff and Jenna, and well, that's Jenna, but I'm Jenna. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you for
Cheers.
listening.